Darren Carrington is a video impact coach with more than 25 years broadcasting experience in both radio and TV. He coaches people all over the world on a one-to-one basis. He also offers small group programs to ultimately create confidence and clarity when you're producing your video or podcasting content before offering it to the world. Darren, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you on. Now, take a minute and unpack your bio for our listeners.
How long have we got? you say more than 25 years experience in broadcasting, both radio and TV, and clearly you can tell I started very, very young. Where I am today, I'm based in Dubai, and what brought me to Dubai was the fact that I'd been working with an organisation where we were providing radio and TV to the British forces all over the world. So we were based in a beautiful part of the UK, and we had stations that spanned literally from east to west around the world, basically encompassing about more than 23 stations at one point. And I would regularly get to visit these stations for a brief visit, maybe just a couple of weeks to do fly in, do a couple of shows and then fly out again, or fly in, do some reporting and then fly out again, to longer detachments, 3-6 months, and then overseas postings. And I was in Cyprus before I ended up coming to Dubai. And I wanted to get back into the world of commercial radio and commercial broadcasting in general, because having worked with my previous company, British Forces Broadcasting Service, for about 12 years, I felt that I wanted to resharpen my skills and put them to use in a commercial environment, and that's what brought me to Dubai. So I came to Dubai as the head of Radio 2 for Gulf News Broadcasting, and coming into a new environment where the presentation lineup is such a diverse mix, I really had to sort of tap into my leadership skills as well as my broadcasting capabilities to make sure that everyone was really aligned and coming together. And one of the big realizations for me at that time was everyone was doing something differently. When I say doing things differently, they would all go on with their own agenda. In terms, there was no real format to the station. Yes, in terms of the music we were playing and the audience that we were trying to appeal to, but the content that was making up that station format was so mixed because of the different cultural background and diversity. So I looked at where we had gaps that we could close up, and I went in there with an agenda to create more opportunities for increasing the revenue. And to cut it short, Chris, because otherwise we'll be here for weeks, and I know we don't have that time, the clutter that was involved in the messaging that the presenters were actually putting out on air was really taking us away from that potential sellability of airtime. So I got them to a point of actually formatting what they were saying and how they were saying it. So everyone, instead of going on, one person might be talking for 3 minutes, another one might be talking for 6 or 7 minutes. That was very cluttered. So by decluttering and actually getting everyone aligned in terms of how they were presenting and what they were presenting in terms of the core message, we actually increased the revenue year on year by 35%, which is pretty amazing. And that in itself, if you think about, say, how did you increase the revenue? Well, by decluttering, that allowed more space in the hourly schedules for the sales team to go out and sell more sponsorships, more, just more stuff in general to various clients who wanted either live reads or getting involved in sponsorship competitions, etc. It just created more windows for us to be able to go out and sell, and that increased the profitability by 35% year on year. And that's what I've sort of taken forward with me in what I'm doing today in terms of my coaching for the video impacting, because I looked at what people were doing. They were putting themselves out there in a very vulnerable place, and it is in a very vulnerable place putting ourselves out there in the video world. And the way that the market is going now with Facebook and all of these online platforms, they're pushing video in favor of text and static posts. So we have to embrace it whether we like it or not. And some were early adopters. They were going out and putting themselves out there, as I say, putting them in a very vulnerable position, and that was great. But they clearly needed some sort of support, because all of a sudden you get presented with this broadcasting platform, this live broadcasting platform, and it's like having the keys to a Ferrari when you've never taken a driving lesson. So I'm here to teach you how to drive that Ferrari and do it in a way of a performance driver could actually get the best out of that vehicle.
Ooh, that's good. I'd love to drive a Ferrari at some point. Now let's go into some of the nuts and bolts. What is a video impact coach exactly?
Great question, and I guess you could ask so many different people that coach around video the same question, and you'd probably get a variation on the answer. Now, that's not me trying to sidestep the question. I would have made a great politician in a previous life, wouldn't I? But I mean, the way I've gone about creating my way of video impact coaching is to really identify who we are at a core level. And what does that mean? Well, we all have this preferred behavioral style that we go about the world and show up in the world in that same way every single day. And we don't really pay a great deal of attention to that. And through my leadership development, through my actual broadcasting career, I certified in certain areas of certain psychometric assessments, and I saw how powerful they were and how I was then implementing that information with my teams and making them really cohesive in terms of a multicultural, multi sort of national team, and some of the effects and benefits we got from that. So I use that in my coaching as well. So anyone that works with me, we get down to the power of personality. So I call it the power of personality, because if I had said to you, Chris, yesterday, okay, we're going to have a conversation around your preferred behavioural style. Can you just give me a couple of pages on what that means to you and how you feel you show up to the world? Now, you would have gone off, Chris, and you would have thought, okay, scratching your head probably in the background thinking, where on earth do I start with this? This guy's asked me a question that I really don't know where to start. And you probably would have put a few things down, and that wouldn't have given you a great deal of evidence of how you show up to the world and how you prefer to communicate to those around you. Now, we all know that we've gone out and we've worked with people, or we've come across people that sometimes we just hit it off, and we know straight away that there's some sort of synergy there. You come back and you say, we're on the same wavelength. Well, indeed you will be, and there's a reason for that. But there's also a reason for people that you come away from and you think, I don't know, I've tried my hardest, and yet I still can't seem to connect with that person. And if we start to dissect and cut deeper, that's because we have our preferred behavioural style, which also equates to our preferred presentation style, which has a preferred communication style. So we go through that at a very deep level to understand who we are, how we show up to the world, how we prefer to present, the style which we prefer to present in, and the more preferred communication style associated with our dimension as opposed to somebody else's. So if we're trying to appeal to a certain demographic, who do we prefer to work with? Who do we really get on well with? Is that our core demographic? And then how we then communicate in terms of the words we use, are we direct, are we indirect in our communication, our presentation style? This all comes into effect. So this is the foundation of where we work with on our sort of power of personality. And we then grow up in terms of body language, how we then use that style and that presentation preference around body language, voice skills, how to control the nerves, breath control, pace of delivery, the posture. And again, showing up on video, it's not just about the voice, it's about a lot of the emphasis that we can create through gesturing. We also go through a process on how we can get the best from interviewing people. We look at the power of storytelling. Storytelling is something that if you can connect with somebody in terms of the relatability, the relevance of what the core of that topic of conversation is, how can it connect with them? How can it be relative to them and something they can relate to? Now, I always use the example of stand-up comedians when I talk about relatability and relevance, because stand-up comedians are the masters at this, because they can go all over the world and they can have any audience in absolute hysterics. And all they do, they just tweak a little bit of their set and their material to incorporate something which is localized to that particular audience. So they're making it relevant, they're making it relatable. And we can do that. We can take what is happening on a global scale and we can shrink it down, we can scale it down to make it local to fit our unique audience. So we look at how we can make the relevance and relatability around storytelling. And by doing that, we also create credibility because we get straight to the point. And, if there's a point that somebody can hang their hat on and say, yeah, now I know that really means something to me, you've got that connection there straight away. We look at the demographic as well, Chris. We find out who they are, who is working well with you, who doesn't work quite so well with you, and what we need to be doing to get more traffic coming through of those that we do work well with, and maybe not focus on quite so much the ones we don't work quite so well with. And anyone that works with me, they'll know that I'm a big fan of scripting. Now, when I talk about scripting, I do talk about scripting, and I'm a big fan of it, but I don't expect people to have a script that they read verbatim when they're on camera, because that would just look silly and it would sound awful as well. But if you think about news anchors read from a script, and they are, again, really defining the art of reading from a script. They read these teleprompters and they do it in such a conversational delivery. Now, the producers obviously know the presenters that are going to be on in each shift, and those producers will write in the style of that presenter. So there is congruency there. So once we get into scripting our content, we script it in how we would normally say it in conversation, and all of a sudden we get to the point where we almost memorize the script, and if a couple of words fall out of the script, when we practice it doesn't matter, because I always use this analogy that if we imagine ourselves to be a laptop for a second, when we go through the practice process and we continually go through our script and we might substitute one word for another word, what we're effectively doing is leaving stuff on our desktop where it's very easy to find. However, if you file it away very neatly somewhere in the hard drive, it takes a bit longer to go and retrieve that file. And we can hear that when somebody's making a delivery of their message, because when they're searching for something that might be stored away in their hard drive where they haven't actually practiced or thought about what they would say with regards to that part of the message, you can hear it. It's evident because they'll be hesitant, they'll be umming, they'll be ahhing, they'll be filling audibly just because they're searching. It's an audible fill. They're searching for something to say. So when we actually go through and we practice this delivery in terms of our content, every time we do it, we're putting the words on our desktop. And every time we go through, we can just scoop those up as seamlessly as we like, and that consistency and flow is there as part of our delivery. And it's quite a simple process that I work on with people, and you'll be amazed at how quickly we can get into this. I can't even think for 1 second about scripting my content for delivery. Well, when we go through the process, it's very straightforward, and we get rid of all of the clutter, so we don't need stuff in there that doesn't have to be in there, and we can make it very effective and efficient in terms of communicating with our target demographic. So we also look at the structure around putting a video together. Some people will say to me, I haven't got a clue where to start. So we look at the structure, and again we break that down into a very simple 3-part structure by having an intro. So you wouldn't expect to walk into a room full of people for the first time just assuming that they would know your name, know what you do, and why you're there on that given occasion. So we do that in a very simple introduction. Hey, this is Darren, Video Impact Coach. Today I want to talk to you about how to structure your video in a very simple 3-part process. You're doing it in a very seamless way, a very conversational way, and there's no element of doubt then why you're there, what you're doing, and why you're showing up. Then you can go into the core of that topic of conversation, the core of the message. And so as we're talking about the 3-part process and how to structure your video, we start to go through. But again, it doesn't come across to the viewer that you've broken them up into 3 separate parts. And then when we get to part 3, so we finish our core of why we're there, we get to part 3, and we're again just wrapping up. So if you just tuned in, today we've been talking about how to really summarize your video in 3 parts in a very simple process. Part 1 we talked about part 2 and part 3, this is where we give our call to action and give you the opportunity to follow us to get more value on how we can help you in the future. And so it's a very simple 3-part process, and it might seem a bit way off at the moment for anyone that's considering taking up the video challenge or the Facebook Live challenge. Might think, well, how can I do that? But trust me, we can get you through that in a very smooth delivery and a very effective way of doing that as well. We also look at the equipment. A lot of people are put off by the daunting element of, well, immediately you think of video, you're thinking of expensive studios, lighting, etc. Well, it doesn't really have to be like that, to be honest. It can be done very affordably, and a lot of people are doing it affordably as well. But it's out there, it's available to us, and most of us these days, we have a perfectly good recording device in our pocket or in our bags, in our purse, etc. I.e. a smartphone. And now they're getting better and better in terms of the capability for sound, capability for actual video imaging, and the frames per second. It's all coming together. So there's no real excuse anymore why we shouldn't embrace video and Facebook Live and online streaming platforms.
No, and that's great. I mean, you said so many great things here. I mean, I'm scribbling down notes, man, just because there's so many things that I want to get into. But yeah, I definitely want to dive into the Facebook stuff. But before we dive into that section, I love how you broke down the whole process. The process of creating video. Because when people think of video, it's like, I just want to get up on screen and just want to shoot a video, and they don't think about all the ways they have to show up to video. And so when you talked about body language and posture and all those are things that people typically don't think about when they think about shooting video. So for the author, like for the person who has a book and he's like, hey, I just want to get on video and talk about my book. Why do these things matter so much? Why does it matter how you show up on the camera? Why does it matter that you have correct posture, that you're speaking into the camera? Like, why do those things matter when I just want to shoot my video and just show off my book? Like, why does it matter?
That is a great question. That's a beautiful question, and I guess really, if you think anything that's visual, then we have to bring it alive, because otherwise, what's the point in going? You may as well just record a podcast or record some sort of audio book or audio message. The fact that we're showing up on camera is because that we have other stuff to basically animate through ourselves. Now, some people are not animated, some people are quite reserved and quite laid back. That doesn't mean to say that you can't bring it to life on camera. And I always, on a scale of maybe 1 to 10, I always say that if you're showing up day to day I'll go back to when I first started in radio. If you're showing up on the radio, I used to listen to the people there who show up every day, and I used to think, the energy that comes from these people, surely they can't be like this all the time. But what they do, I guess you do have to pump it up by a few degrees. So if you're normally at, wherever people might see you, if you're normally at, say, on a scale of 1 to 10, number 5, you have to ramp that up to about 7.5, because when it comes out on either over the through the speakers if it's radio, or through the screen if it's video or TV, that would naturally drop down to that 5 on the scale. So if you're going out on 5, that would drop down to about 3.5. So what I'm saying is you have to pump it up a little bit. So if somebody's going on who's written a book and they want to enthuse about this book, they're probably going to go on, if they're normally about a 5, they'll probably go on at that 5, and just through the technology and how we then appear on screen, that would appear to be lacking a lot of luster. And it will be coming out lower than what the audience would be maybe expecting. So we have to ramp it up a bit. So we have to maybe go with a little bit more enthusiasm, a little bit more energy, and we can do that through our body language. We can do that through the gesturing and the tone of voice and how we then approach certain things. You'll hear a lot of people on video, if you tune in. I mean, there are so many to choose from on Facebook and YouTube these days, and you'll hear there's very little variation and fluctuation in the tone of their delivery. Now, I go through a process with people, and I give them one sentence, and if they emphasize a different word on each time they go through it, out of one sentence they can create about 10 different meanings from that one sentence just by emphasizing a different word. So if they start off, I'll give you an example. I didn't say Jane stole my blue pen. Okay, a very simple sentence. Now, if I said to you, I didn't say Jane stole my blue pen. I didn't say Jane stole my blue pen. You can see how that's starting to change just through the emphasis of putting the emphasis on a different word. And sometimes people go through their delivery, and it's no different from when they start their first word to when they end their last word. And you think, come on, you need to lift this up. You need to actually connect, because when you're in conversation, we naturally do it when we're with people on a one-to-one, or maybe in a group that we're comfortable with. We naturally do that. We animate, we bring things to life, we emphasize a bit here, we emphasize a bit there. But a lot of people just tend to go into that rabbit in headlights mode where they're on camera, and they lose all of that.
No, right. And I think that's very important. Like you said, I love that you mentioned just ramping it up, because, we normally, like you said, we function at a 5 or a 6, and then we have to show up at the camera. We have to be a 9 or a 10 because people have to be able to feel that excitement. It's part of that visual storytelling you were talking about, a few minutes ago. And that's something else, and we'll dive into that too, is just the storytelling aspect. When authors have books, when we have books and we go to present a live video, it's talk about the importance of telling a story around the book as opposed to just going straight into what people are used to, kind of the Amazon approach where, hi, my name is Chris Jones. I wrote this book. Here's what the book is about, which is very monotone. It's very boring. How can interjecting story to get people excited in a video make a difference in the sales of the book?
It's almost like that, going back to that relatability and that relevance again. Somebody might be curious about your book. And I'm sure there will be elements in any book that pretty much anyone that picks it up can relate to. They might not be able to relate to the whole book, but there'll be elements that they can relate to in certain parts of that book. So I'm going to share a story with you now. I'm going to share a story, and I'm going to give you an example of the power of silence. Okay, when I worked with BFBS, I spent some time in Iraq. And I was out in Iraq. I was the station manager based in Basra, a place called Shaiba Logistics Base, which is just south of Basra International Airport. And I was there from January 2006 for about 5 months. And I was there at a very tough time because it was at that point when I'd only been out there by a couple of weeks. And there were casualties, British forces casualties and deaths happening almost on a daily basis. And within a very short time of me being there, the number reached 100 of deaths for the British forces whilst being on tour in Iraq. And because of the company I work with, BFBS, we were very much involved with the command, so we obviously had to be updated with what was going on in terms of the security state, etc. And the day that the number was announced of the 100th person losing their life in that conflict, we went to the all ranks mess, and you can just imagine the white noise that, in terms of the number of people in this massive mess, hundreds of people there. You can imagine just the noise, the people talking, etc. And I sat down, I got my food, and I sat down. And as I sat down, I literally had a couple of mouthfuls, and Sky News was actually reporting on that story. And this is a very poignant moment in my life, because I would never ever forget this image in my mind. And it sends chills down my spine every time I talk about it. And even now I'm getting the hair standing up on my neck and the chills going down my spine. As this story started to be told and reported on Sky News, the noise, it was just like somebody had a massive volume control and they were turning it down really, really slowly. And this noise that had been just so deafening started to, without any command from anyone, it just started to turn down really, really slowly. And it continued to get slower and slower in terms of the way that the volume was decreasing. And it got to a point that all you could hear was the reporter on the television. And it was a massive, 60-inch screen. It was massive. And there was several of them around the mess. And all you could hear was just this reporter's voice. And when he finished his story, it was a very moving report. And when he finished his report, nobody said a word. Nobody said a word at all. And then, I guess about a minute after that, you could hear the TV in the background, but the volume then was being turned up the other way, very, very slowly. It's like somebody was just turning up that volume control back up to the same level of noise pollution that we had earlier before the actual report started. And that's like, wow, the power of silence. When you've got hundreds of people inside a room and there's nothing controlling them, nobody's jumping up and banging a stick or banging a bell, or waving a bell and saying, right, quiet, listen to what's on TV. It's just I guess the level of respect that people had for their colleagues that have lost their life. And there was mixed emotions going around that mess that night. People were thinking, am I likely to be number 101? All of these different mixed emotions, and the power of silence is deafening. And I know that sounds such a bizarre thing to say, but that was a moment in my life that I will never ever forget, how powerful silence can be. And that is just something I take with me. And so in terms of storytelling, you can bring things to life by creating relevance. And because the relevance here for me of what I do with video impact coaching, a lot of people are fearful of running out of things to say, and they just go at a pace which is almost like a hot rod delivery, and they're fearful of stopping and letting anyone get in. So what I try to do is create this moment of awareness around what silence can do for them and how powerful it can be, and pausing for breath, for swallowing, and just acknowledging people that as they come on, if it's a Facebook Live, can be really, really empowering to the viewer as well. And also the fact that if we are on almost like a hot rod pace delivery, quite often our audience can't keep up with us. So by having that slower delivery in terms of pace and having that opportunity to pause at the right places, we can create some powerful opportunities for our audience not only to catch up with us, but also really resonate with certain things where they need to be emphasized through the power of not saying anything.
No, I love that, because it goes back to your stand-up comedian example. Like, the best stand-up comedians always know when to pause. And they always pause right as they deliver the punchline. They just stop and let you take it in.
Yes.
And I think that's a very powerful device to use in video, is being able to, deliver and then just stop, let the audience take it in, and then bring on the next thing. So I love that you mentioned just the power of silence.
It is. Well, if it had a currency, it would be up there, very highly trading on today's market, I think.
I'll look for it today. Now let's talk about Facebook Live a little bit. Now, why is Facebook Live a must-use technology at this point?
Well, if you think about the money that Mr. Zuckerberg and his employees have actually been pouring into this particular platform now, they want to see a return on it. So what they're doing, they've almost forced our hand as users on this wonderful platform that is Facebook. They call the shots. We know that. If you think about how they manipulate us and what they want us to do, this is that next rollout of that manipulation. And what they're doing, they're setting up the algorithms in such a way that when we post text posts or static posts, they're not being seen by as many people as we would like them to be seen by. Because what they're doing, they're favoring any video post. So any video that appears, or Facebook Live that appears in your newsfeed, that has been pushed up above somebody's static post that they may have posted. And it might be a really beautiful image as well that they've created, and a really powerful message that goes with that image. But the chances are we're not going to see that, because somebody who's gone out on Facebook Live or put a video on there has really gone up they've been bumped up the line in terms of their viewing numbers. So that's why we are being sort of channeled, if you like, to go into using video and Facebook Live, because they've invested so much money into that. And if we think about it as well, Chris, it's not that long ago that to have that opportunity to have a live broadcasting platform to going out to your selected audience, that would have cost you thousands and thousands of dollars for just minutes of opportunity. And now we have it at our disposal, and it's essentially free.
And that's fantastic that we've got that tool, a tool of that caliber, where we can connect with people anywhere, all over the world, and interact with them, and we have free access to that.
Yeah.
It's just it's an amazing marketing tool. And now, when using using Facebook Live, is there a certain way I should hold my camera or mount it for maximum effectiveness, or does Facebook care whether I have it landscape or portrait?
For Facebook Lives, you're probably better doing it in portrait, because if you have it landscape, you'll not necessarily see your viewers as they join, and if they send you any messages whilst you're live, you won't see that if you're in landscape view. So it doesn't look very pretty if it's in portrait, to be honest with you, but because you've probably seen a lot of the lives that go out, obviously that vertical shot looks as though it's very restricted in terms of the width where you can see the actual presenter. However, it all comes down to, I guess, technique of how close to the camera you are. If people tend to stand further away from the phone, then you're going to see that's more exaggerated in terms of that narrowing of that image. But yeah, it's I guess trial and error as well, depending on how far from the camera you feel comfortable with. But I would say to get the best results, it's not the prettiest, but to get the best results for how you can interact with your audience as they start to build and how you can respond to them, you can see the messages coming on clearer if you have it in portrait as opposed to landscape.
And do you think it's better to use Facebook Live on mobile or desktop? Like, do you feel like there's a difference in the interface and kind of how you're presented in each one?
I personally prefer Facebook on mobile because it's more agile in terms of, you know, the background is likely to vary because I can go out and I can take it anywhere. Whereas one thing that I wouldn't say I'm against, but if I see somebody that's doing a live, and I could think of one person right now, I'm not going to name them, but they're very consistent. They show up every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, giving their message, and they do it from their desktop, and the backdrop is always the same. Now, as you know, if you tune in and you see that live, that's fine. But if you're watching the replay, obviously it will appear in your newsfeed and it doesn't come up with the sound on. It automatically plays, but it's muted. Now, for us to go in and watch that, we have to unmute it. Now, if I'm watching this where the background is exactly the same, I might not pay too much attention to what that person is wearing today compared to yesterday or the previous day before that. So I might just look at it, see the backdrop and think, well, I've already seen this one, because there's no variation in what is behind them. So when we have the mobile device, we can go out, and I'm very much a fan of, you know, where I live, I'm blessed to be in Dubai, and sometimes I go out and I do my Facebook Lives from the sand dunes just over the back of where I live, just to give a very unique and different backdrop. And I think that's the key to it. You know, not only alternating what you have to say, but where you say it is key to it being something that the audience can connect with as well.
Now, what are some other best practices for just some really quick hit best practices for shooting Facebook Live video?
When you're starting out, it's a really, really daunting prospect. All of a sudden, you know that when you hit that go live button, you've got 3 seconds and da-da, we're on, no going back. Now, I always work with people to get them over that fear factor of going live and pressing that button. So I would say if you're contemplating, if you're on the ledge of, you know, going in and embracing Facebook Live, but there's something that just holds you back because of this, not wanting to show yourself up to the vast audience that you go out on your friends list and contacts list, I would say select somebody that you know, trust, and you know that will give you the right feedback, and just do a Facebook Live to them. So it's just between you and one other, and then that way it gets you comfortable with the process, it gets you comfortable with the anxiety beforehand, knowing that you've got 3 seconds, then all of a sudden you're live. But instead of you going out to a wider platform, you're just going out to one person. That's a really good way of actually overcoming those nerves and getting comfortable with the process.
Now, is there a particular environment where I should go live? Like if I'm, looking to promote something, should I do live in my home office? Should I do it outside? Like, is there a place where the environment wouldn't be so distracting to the outside audience?
I would say align that to your message. Whatever your message is and the relevance of what your message is, try to create an opportunity of going to a place that would really help bring that to life. And again, if you think about anything without vision, we rely on the person describing whatever their message is to bring that to life. Once we have something going on, it gives us, the opportunity to be in vision. The backdrop can say a lot about the message as well, and can help create the message as well. And I'll give you an example. Somebody that I work with in Dubai, she's just gone through a corporate video shoot. Now, I don't really get into corporate video shoots, to be honest with you, because that's not my area of interest. But I said to her, Look, I'm very happy to give you any guidance and support around, the actual process. And she said, no, I found somebody, and he's very good. So I watched the actual video, and it's a great video, but maybe I'm just being a bit too finicky and a bit too fussy. But there was elements where she has a training company where she offers this to companies where they do training and they do customer service experiences, etc. Now she uses an array of people. Instead of employing a team of facilitators and trainers, she taps into people who maybe work for themselves on a freelance basis. So she has this recognized team that will support her on any given project. Now that's great, but when she put the video together, she's talking about this international team, and then it went to some still shots of her on this video, and it was her delivering the program, and it had about 4 different photographs of her delivering the program. So that didn't demonstrate what this international team of facilitators and trainers would be to any potential client. You see what I'm saying here? How it's not just what we say in vision, it's about the pictures that we can connect and the images we can connect that helps to tell that story.
No, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Because I've always wondered, what are the best places, or should I change my environment? But no, that answers a really great question. And I love that you say just go to the environment that's going to have the biggest impact on the video. Now, next question for you is there a best time of day to go live? Is there a time when the audience engagement is the highest, or is there a time that people should avoid going live? What do you think?
Again, great question. The beauty of this live streaming platform that we have, you whatever time you go out on, you're going to be hitting somebody in their prime time within their working day. So that's the beauty. Is there a definitive optimum time? I would say no, because it depends on who your market is. If you're just appealing to your market demographic, which is in your same time zone, you would know what the optimum time of day to go out and send your message to the world or your world would be. But if you're doing it on a global perspective, then whatever time might be in the States, obviously the time in the UAE or the time in the UK, the time in Australia and New Zealand, etc., it's going to vary. And however can you tap into the optimum time of their working day? But one thing I would say when it comes to Facebook Lives, Chris, is that if you think about how we get bombarded with messages on any sort of TV network, in terms of the promos, the trailers that are going out for programs, we get those rammed down our throat. Most people, when they show up for their Facebook Lives, they're showing up, and it's just like going around to your friend's house and you're knocking on their door, say, hey, I've just come around for a coffee. And it might not be convenient for them to open the door, let you in and make you a coffee. So that could be a very disappointing experience. So if we can actually pre-warn people by promoting when we're likely to go live, and also what we'll be talking about when we go live, and we can do that in almost like a countdown on an hourly basis, and get people to maybe give you some pointers of what they might want you to talk about within that topic of conversation as well. So that's a really good way to build engagement. So when you do go live, you're not doing what a lot of people do, and they just wait for people to show up. Say, hey, I'm live. I just wait for Tom, Dick, and Harry to come, and once we're there, then we'll get rolling. And then that could be a long time. And for the ones that watch the replay, that's who we've got to think of as well. It's not just about watching the live attendees as they roll up. We've got to think about those that are watching it when we have the playback. And the replay is something that a lot of people get bored with, because it takes them a long while to get involved and get up to speed with that delivery of that message.
No, that's great information. And does Facebook provide analytics so that you can kind of tell the number of people who watched your video, when they've watched your video, just so you have an idea of kind of the best time for your audience? Does that happen?
They're not that specific yet. You can see the number of views, and you can see the number of views that are over a certain duration, so over 10 seconds, but they haven't got into actual the time that they watched them and anything like that. But I'm sure it will come. And I don't think it's going to be very long, to be honest with you. But at the moment, those analytics and metrics aren't there.
Oh, but I think it's still kind of cool that that you can tell the number of people that have watched your video, because I think if you're doing your videos topically, then which topics are resonating with people and which ones are maybe not resonating with people.
That's true. They're very, very true. And again, they can be a little bit deceiving, because obviously when they pop up in the news feed and they go through, they also play. So sometimes you can see, a video might have a lot of views and it wouldn't necessarily have the same or correlating number of likes. And you might think, well, how does that work? But obviously when they pop up and they're on autoplay, if you hover over it, that's registered as a view. So they can be a little bit deceptive in terms of the figures that are, how accurate are they that somebody has watched. If we've got a video that says we got 1.4 million views, how accurate? I guess if you've got 1.4 million views, you're not going to be too worried about the odd 1,000 here, the odd 1,000 there that didn't really be an effective viewer, because you know you're getting traction with the vast majority. But that's just something to have on your radar to be aware of as well.
Now, in terms of like where to look, do you look directly into because I know people, I'm sure, are looking like into the screen thinking they're looking into the camera, which makes them look away from the audience. Should I be looking directly into my camera when I'm doing my live videos?
Again, you got some great questions. Depending on the individual. Now, one of my things, I've always been that sort of person. When I'm in conversation, I look the person that I'm having a conversation with in the eye. I look at them, and you tell a lot, and it's the right way to do it as well. When you go on camera, if you're looking at the screen, then you're not looking at your viewer in the eye. Now, to look at the camera, that can be quite off-putting for some people, because all of a sudden they're thinking, I know I'm looking at the camera. But when they look at themselves on the screen, that's quite off-putting because they can see themselves. Whereas when you're looking at the camera, you're completely focused on that camera being the person. And I don't say look at the camera, I say look through the camera, because the person you're communicating with is on the other side of that camera. And that's what you need to connect with. Think of them as a person. So that camera is a person on the other side. So how would you normally engage with that person? That's what you need to do with the camera as well. But some people, it's a hurdle that they have a tough time trying to overcome.
No, that's because that's always been my thing with videos. That, man, do I look in the camera? So thanks. That's good. Look people in the eye. I like that. Now another fear that people have typically is just feeling flat. We talked about amping it up a level a little bit earlier, but how do I not look dead in the eyes when I'm staring at a device as opposed to when I'm staring at a human being?
Substitute in your mind. Substitute the camera for a person. And again, this goes back to when I was getting involved in radio. I struggled speaking to that microphone, and I say speaking to because there's a huge difference. I was speaking at the microphone. I wasn't speaking to the microphone. And when I say struggled, it was one of these things a nut I couldn't crack. And then one day I cracked it, and it was the fact that I got in my mind that it was my wife that was actually the face of my wife. I sort of got in front of the microphone, if you like, in my mind. So when I was talking to the mic, I was talking to her, and that really helped me, because all of a sudden I didn't see the microphone, I saw Kath, my wife, and there's nothing I couldn't say to her. So all of a sudden that helps me dig deep and open up to be who I was, and all of a sudden I wasn't aware of a microphone anymore. And I guess we do that with the camera as well. If we can almost in our mind replace what that camera is by a picture of someone in our mind that we know, love and trust, that we could talk to in any way, and nothing would really hold us back. That's what we need to do with the camera as well. Almost just superimpose in our mind a picture of the one we in our life that we know and trust and love, and put it in place of that camera.
No, that is golden advice. I would have never thought to have the image of my wife or someone I care about or someone I really like working with, in my mind's eye while I'm talking to this microphone right now or looking at the camera. So that is golden advice. Thank you so much. That's phenomenal. Now, really quickly, do you have any fun pre-ritual shoots that you do? I know you shoot live videos. Do you have any fun things that you like to do to get yourself amped up and excited before you jump on video?
One thing that I'm not complacent about what I do, and one thing that I sort of pride myself on, that even going on now, I still have those moments of knowing that you're going to go live, and that adrenaline's pumping. And I get myself to a point where I know what I'm going to say, and I know very clear and concise on how I'm going to deliver that message, but I still get to the point where the adrenaline's pumping, and I really get a buzz on that. So when that adrenaline's starting to pump, I've got, if I'm doing the live from home, I've got like a pull-up bar on my office door, and I normally just do about 10 sort of chin-ups before I go live, and that sort of keeps that adrenaline pumping. But if I'm out and about, then I just sort of hype myself up, by sort of mentally preparing myself and being ready. And that's where a lot of people fail to really embrace it, because they don't mentally prepare for what is about to happen. They sort of show up and throw up, as opposed to showing up and showing out.
Ooh, that's nice. Show up and throw up. That's a visual that I'll always keep with me. Thank you, Darren. Now let's talk about authors being able to leverage it as an income tool. Give me 3 ways, just off the cuff, that an author can use Facebook Live to leverage their own either book promotion or sales.
Facebook Live, again, I would say connect from, if it's a book, it doesn't necessarily have to be a story book or a book with a distinct story, but there will be elements within that content of that book that will really connect with somebody that is relevant and relatable to them. So dig deep into what that core topic of that book that you want to focus on is going to be, and how. Okay, let's just backtrack a little bit. Who do you want this message to go out to? And that's the rhetorical question here. Think about who you want the message to go out to. If you're going out to your entire friends list, okay, that's one thing. Not everybody on that friends list is likely to be interested in what you might have to say. But if you can come up with a generic way that brings everyone together, and you hear politicians doing this all the time. They create a story that brings people together because everyone can relate to it. There's always an element of relatability that somebody can put on it, and it's relevant to their life now and what's going on a bigger scale. So that's what I would suggest to any author who's trying to leverage their book. Really get to the point of seeing what is going on a global scale, how their content within that book that they want to focus on for the purpose of that message can be relevant to what is going on in the world and to that particular audience at that time, and how to connect the dots.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Now tell our listeners, Darren, as we come down and wrap up for a close, tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you and talk to you more about your coaching programs. Where can they find you?
Right, and I'd like to offer, I've got a free video survival kit, which, I talk to people through the basics of what kits you need to get out there and start putting yourself out in the world of video and Facebook Live. And you can get that at videoimpactcoach.com. videoimpactcoach.com. I also have a group, Chris, on Facebook that's, it's a community that I'm building for people that are really out there on video or Facebook Live, or those that are about to enter into that sort of new world of broadcasting and putting themselves out there. So I offer support, and it's a forum there people can post questions. If there's anything that they are really looking to achieve in terms of knowledge and ability, they would pose the question, and if I can't come up with the question, the answer, I will pose that question to other members in the group. And it's gathering momentum and it's building a great community. So that is on Facebook, so facebook.com/groups/better videos more clients. Again, just go to facebook.com/groups/better videos more clients and request to join, and I'd love to see you in there, and whatever I can do to help you, I'm always promoting things that we can do to give a better experience for the viewer in terms of our video and Facebook Live. And if there's any questions that you have specifically around something that you're finding a challenge or you would like some help with, just pose the question and it'll be a pleasure to help you. And you'll see ways of how you can connect with me to explore how you might want to work with me.
Awesome, man. I'm assuming, as people do video and get more comfortable, they get better in time. Give our listeners just one nugget of advice just to get them started with Facebook Live videos so that they can start to do the things we talked about right away.
Okay. This is a conversation I've been having lately. I did a post on it yesterday. I said that every butterfly was once a caterpillar. Just think about that for a second. Every butterfly was once a caterpillar. Now, if you think about those people that are confident or appear confident and competent when it comes to Facebook Live and video, they are ahead of the game. They are getting their wings, but they didn't go on the first day and they were this beautiful butterfly. They were once upon a time a caterpillar. Now, that's not to say that a caterpillar is not as beautiful as a butterfly, because it has its purpose and it has its part in the world, but it's got to go through some pain and some growth to get those wings to be that beautiful butterfly. Now, sometimes that pain and that element of growth is something of a tangible quality that people see as enough to hold them back, to not want to take the plunge. So all I would say is I'd urge you to really practice speaking to yourself. The biggest thing that would hold people back is when you speak and you don't get any return. It's off-putting because you don't know what to say next, and then you might struggle on how to create the flow. But do it in your bathroom mirror. We're in there every morning. We go in there to brush our teeth after we have a shower, etc. So talk to yourself. Go through a running commentary. So, hey Darren, today I'm feeling great. I got up and had a great shower. I'm just about to brush my teeth now. And this is the brand of my toothpaste. And this is the brand of my toothbrush. And you start talking through. Then all of a sudden you get to a point of comfort and confidence that, hey, I can talk. And I don't have to have a response. I can fill those gaps, and all of a sudden I gather momentum, and more momentum starts to build. And then you know that if you're doing that on video, all of a sudden, voila, we're here. I've grown. I can now hold a conversation with my viewers, and I don't have to have them responding to me in order for me to come back with something else.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in again today. You have been with Chris and Darren talking about the benefits of using video and Facebook Live to really expand your author platform, to use it for generating more sales, to present your book to your audience, and just to be able to show up in front of the camera and get used to really connecting with your audience. Thank you so much for joining me today, Darren.
It's a pleasure, Chris. Thank you. And again, if I can help any of your listeners to this podcast to develop themselves in terms of confidence and growth and get themselves out there to deliver their message on both video and Facebook Live, it'll be a pleasure.
Awesome. And then give us those links one last time. The link to your site and then the link to your Facebook group.
Okay. To the site is videoimpactcoach.com. videoimpactcoach.com, and my group is on Facebook, so facebook.com/groups/better videos, more clients.
Awesome. Thanks, Darren. Have a great day.
And you, Chris. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Okay.